I put together, we never could put Graham together on a sheet of paper because she was just such an incredible human being. But I put together a lot of some of the stories and things that I think we all remember her by. She was born in Lansing, Michigan on August 21st, 1933, during the Great Depression, and died in the Palidori House in Lake Havasu, Arizona, on July 20th, 2012. Her parents were Gladys Pearson, or we called her Nani, and Earl, and Papa Pearson, as we call them. She had 4 siblings: Walt, Bernice, Bernie, and Arden. Arden is the current only living sibling that she has. She attended high school at Eastern High School in Lansing, Michigan, and she married Robert Earl Parker Sr. at age 17. And her brother Arden married Brian Parker, so all of us are doubly related. She did get her certified nursing assistant at CNA. She wanted to be an MD, but it was very rare for women in those days to become doctors. And as a true Catholic, the family was very prolific. In fact, and I guess television wasn't for entertainment. We had 10 brothers and sisters: Kathy, Bob, John, Larry, Ken, Jeannie, Joe, Rich, and Chris. So 10 children, 26 grandchildren, myself, Katrina, Matt, Helen, Cherish, Bobby, Luke, Kimmy, Lois Ann, little Robert, Nathan, Lori, Sherry, Josh, Jessica, Lyle, Amy, Ben, Sebastian, Joe, Jr., Brian, Brittany, John, Cassandra, Allison, and Natalie. I think I got all of them. She had 41 great-grandchildren, one along the way right now. Jiro, Mark, Ken, Chantel, Terry, Savannah, Brandon, Cheyenne, Sierra, Helena, Ava, Jennifer, Andrew, Nick, Gracie, Lucas, Bailey, Samantha, Megan, Lauren, Monique, Kiara, Mariah, Robert, Ethan, Joel, Ashley, Caleb, Jake, Michaela, Autumn, Kaylee, Candace, Michaela, Nick, Annabelle, Jake, Mason, Elliot, Haley, and Amanda. And she even had one great-grandchild, Talaja, and I hope I got everybody. But even beyond that, she was also loved by countless friends and extended family. She always welcomed people into the Parker family, even though you may not have the blood. She treated you as if you were part of the family. She was a very strong, independent woman and gave all of herself to help her family and friends. She eventually went back to get her GED, studying to become a computer programmer in DBase 3 and C++. How many grandmas do you know are computer programmers? She was truly a phenomenal person. She gained top secret government clearance as a military contractor. Very few people ever obtained that. She was a great animal lover, and I have just some pets here I put in here because a lot of you remember them and maybe some of the funny stories behind them. Queenie Mitzi, a lot of you remember her. Aja Mola, there's stories behind there. Susie Lady, Sasha, Missy, Toffee, Molly was currently there. The crazy Kitty Miko, I'm sure most of you remember that. And of course, the 2 infamous birds, Polky and Gumbo. So she definitely was an animal lover as well. She never stayed put. She was always on the move. She lived in several different houses. In the farmhouse, maybe I'm sure all remember, the duplex. Then she moved to Thousand Oaks to live with Leo. The condo in Port Hueneme, house in Davenport, Alpine, just a few. I mean, she lived in a lot of different places. Always on the move. She spent a good portion of her retirement years living with and helping family members. That kind of speaks to who she was as a person. For a while, she lived with John and Barb. She lived with Judy, Joe, Brittany, Brian, and John. She lived with Jenny and Matt and Savannah and taught Jenny how to be a good mommy. She lived with Chris and Julia and Cassandra. She helped to raise Natalie and Allison. And she lived with Paul and Larry Brazil. She also came to live with me for 2 years with Ellen. One thing about Grandma is she always had her way on doing things. When she came to live with you, she arranged your furniture, your drawers, and your closets. And she always had a better way of doing things, and she was truly very organized person. Susie mentioned that she would organize her drugstore, which doesn't surprise me because that's the kind of person she was. Her final home was Bullhead City, Arizona. Don't ever tell her it was a trailer. It wasn't a trailer. It was a pre-manufactured house. She corrected it several times. And you might have missed her 4-foot 9 stature, but you couldn't miss that red hair, or the Birkenstocks, or the capri pants, or the t-shirts. That was her classic look. I can still remember her asking me all the time if I'd gotten that job, and I fell for it almost every time. And I would always fall for it, and I would say, "What job?" And she said, "The foghorn relief in Port Hueneme," every time that I blew my nose. That was Graham. She always had a joke. Very full of life. She asked all of us if we ever found that box. I don't know if we ever did find that box. She had a home remedy for everything to save money. Susie had mentioned about keeping the watermelon on the ocean front to keep it cold. And Chris, I know, had mentioned about the frozen clothespins for the teething for the baby. She always had some kind of home remedy to save money and was great at raising kids. Of course, she raised 10 of them and several grandchildren. She was good at teaching lessons without teaching you. I remember leaving, coming home from school when I was in college, and she's a person, she allowed me to become the person I'm today. If it hadn't been for her, I probably wouldn't be, have several degrees and work as an administrator in schools now because she allowed me to go to school. But when I lived with her, I came home one day and there were wet towels on my bed. I couldn't figure out why I had wet towels on my bed. And back then at Death Court, I used to share her shower, and I guess I often left wet towels on her bed. And so she was teaching me a lesson not to leave wet towels on her bed. That's not how Graham was. She would teach you a lesson without necessarily scolding you. There were so many funny stories about Graham. Growing up as a kid, we heard them all the time. I remember the one story about Paul went to the store. He told us several times with Grandma. She was all dressed up and she happened to be going to a function. She was with the kids. Many of you have heard this. And of course, the kids were not dressed so nice because they were out playing that day. And Paul asked for Grandma to purchase her dog food. And that was just kind of one of the funny stories that happened when we were growing up. And there was always a lot of comedy in the household. And the kids were well fed, but it was just kind of a joke that we always played on each other as partners growing up. We were always horsing around. And God help you if you're with her, and she said, "Excuse me," several times over and over again. We all know what that meant. She could talk for hours on the phone, and I remember that Jeannie had said that, or Rich, I think, had said that it was cheaper to drive over to your house than to pay the phone bill because she was constantly on the phone, and she kept in contact with all these family relatives because that's just the person that she was. Pink was her favorite color. I wore this pink shirt today because of her. She loved that butter pecan ice cream, cookies, cornbread, and that microwave popcorn. I remember she loved her popcorn. She taught you how to be a good cook and healthy food on a budget. She was very good at that, having 10 kids. That boneless chicken, breast, and vegetables, that was a very typical thing that we did. As she aged, she became more and more about convenience. But again, she was used to cooking for 10 kids and the whole family, so she had to kind of downsize and it was more about the toaster ovens and the microwaves as things got later. She always remembered your birthday. It was your day, it was your special day. She always made you feel like you were that special person. You pick the cake. Whatever cake was your favorite, if it was German chocolate, vanilla, or just regular chocolate, she made sure you got your cake. And she couldn't sit still. She was always on the move, whether she was knitting, whether she was playing cards, or whether she was swimming. The woman was on the go all the time. She never stopped. She loved swimming. In the picture there, it's very well known. That's when she worked at Pepperdine University, and that's when she frequented the pool there at Pepperdine. She was very proud of that picture because she had gotten very much in shape from swimming so much at Pepperdine. She always maintained a positive perspective on hardships despite losing 2 children and a divorce after 25 years. She just always had that positive perspective on life. She always was able to put a positive spin on things, even though things weren't necessarily that great. She was a very emotionally strong and independent woman. She was super organized, as I mentioned before. She always encouraged Parker women not to take any guff from the Parker men, so that was good. She always stuck up to the Parker women, making sure that, and sometimes some Parker men can get out of hand. She never had any trouble sleeping at night. I remember one time I was typing an essay, I was on an all-nighter, and she slept in her bed the whole night as I typed on the computer in her bedroom. So she definitely didn't have any problem sleeping. She lost her battle with myeloma, blood cancer, which affected her bones at the age of 78. She will always be remembered for her undying love, and she gave her family, extended family, and friends. Another memorial service will be held in Lansing, Michigan, a date, place, and time to be announced. Friends and family are welcome to attend. Donations in lieu of flowers are being accepted in honor at the Paladori House. And if those of you who get a chance to stay there, you need to realize she was in the best place before she passed. That place was gorgeous, great patio, great view of the lake. She was really, really the place that she would want to be before she had passed. It was a gorgeous facility. One of her grandchildren, Natalie, also typed up an essay. She was so moved because she was very young, and she was one of the two that was raised, or helped raise by her and her twin sister. And it says, and this is from Natalie, 1:40 p.m. on July 20th, 2012, at 1:40 p.m. Pacific time, the world unknowingly lost a great person. To her family, she was a loved mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, sister, aunt, that will, as the cliche goes, forever be missed. To the world, she was just another elder, one that was quiet, short, and still wore those big glasses from the 1980s that she did. But those that loved her and had the privilege of knowing her, to have talked to her, her death was a level 9 earthquake and had harsh aftershocks. My father, Chris, who's up front here, was a mother that raised 10 children basically on her own, a mother that worked jobs at a farm, a person who taught him moral lessons. She was the person he had called numerous times a week and stayed close, even when she still lived across country in California. To me, she was the woman that moved in to help raise my sisters and I, along with my parents. She was the woman that long before I can remember, babysat and changed diapers, along with hundreds of trips to Walmart, and you guys know she loved Walmart, with my sister and I in tow. She was the woman I sewed with, the person I could talk to hours with on the phone without even noticing. The woman that, even though she had tons and tons of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, never forgot her birthday and never forgot what had happened in my childhood and teenage social life. Once I was told of her passing, everything lost its appeal. The games I played just that morning was no longer fun. The book that I've been reading diligently for their plot, and the movies and TVs were no longer interesting. At the same time, I felt empty and sad, filled to the brim with tears, and I had no tears to cry at all. The world lost a treasure today, and she wrote this in the day that she passed. One that was more than the entirety of Bill Gates' estate, and all the diamond rings, and while the family mourns a great loss, the world is obviously too little was busy. And that's what happened. So I think that, and that's not enough, I'm sure there's a lot more. It's tough to take a person like I remember her, Mom, as we call her, try to put her on the sheet of paper, or try to have a short speech about her. She definitely was incredible.